You're listening to the Sausha Davis Podcast, a show about overcoming fear and manifesting your dream life. Each week, we'll dive deep into real stories and tangible advice about spirituality, law of attraction, mindset, and money so that you can be your happiest, healthiest, and most abundant self. You ready? Here we go. Hey, boys and girls. Today we're back with another episode of the podcast. I just love this shit. Anyways, today I want to talk about self-sabotage. Like, are you self-sabotaging your own success? And a lot of times we are, and we don't even know it. So what I want to talk about today is what is self-sabotage and how do we overcome it? What is it? What does it mean? What are the most common forms of self-sabotage? And then we can, come up with action steps on how to start healing that side of ourselves, okay? So really, what is self-sabotage? It is just, in a nutshell, thoughts, beliefs, actions, habits that hinder us, that keep us from living our best life, that keep us from living at our highest potential, manifesting our deepest desires, really stepping into that person who we are meant to be, okay? And you guys know, you should know, everybody experiences self-sabotage on some level. Like, I don't think anybody is immune to this. I feel like everybody out there at some point in their life has struggled with at least one of these things. And so the first thing we need to do is bring awareness to what our most frequent self-sabotaging habits are. And then we need to go back, bring awareness to our triggers that have us start the self-sabotage process, right? So usually there's something that happens, there's a trigger, and once that trigger is pulled, basically, then that habit forms. It's kind of like Pavlov's dogs, right? So you ring the bell and then they do the thing. They start salivating, right? So something triggers you and then you fall into the habit of self-sabotage. Okay. And so I want you to bring awareness to what is happening so that you can consciously choose different. And this is where that discomfort will come in. That's where you'll start to feel like, squeamish and uncomfortable and I can't. And every story under the sun will surface to keep you playing small. And this is no fault of your own, okay? Zero fault of your own. A lot of times, our brains default to the negative, and it is a safety mechanism in our body, in our system. So for example, to keep you safe, it's going to say, this big scary thing is going to eat you. It's going to kill you, which was great once upon a time when, we were running from tigers. And I mean, there's probably still people out there that run from tigers. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it was like survival mode, right? And so now if you're listening to this, you probably have a house, you probably have a job, you probably have whatever. Like, you're probably not living in a hut somewhere where you're not, quote unquote, safe. You know what I'm saying? And so our brains default to the negative to keep us safe. And so it's not really a fault. And so you got to give yourself grace and just know that that's how we're wired. We're wired that way for survival. But this is where you can consciously choose different, and you don't have to let your monkey mind kind of run the show, okay? So first thing is just bringing awareness to that. And then the next thing is saying, okay, instead of following XYZ habit, I'm going to consciously choose different. And so this is where that discomfort sets in, because you have to make a different choice and take a different action, okay? And this is where the new habits will become wired in your brain. And this is where a lot of people give up because they're like, this is too hard. This is too tough. I can't. And so I just tell people, choose your hard, okay? Like, everything in life has its difficulties, okay? And it's about your mindset and how determined you are for change. And so what's more uncomfortable, being in the same boat a year from now or sitting with the temporary discomfort to create new healthy habits in your life in order for you to overcome these self-sabotaging beliefs, okay? And this is a practice. This isn't something that you're just going to be like, snap your fingers and wake up one day and say, oh, my self-sabotage is cured. I wish it were that easy. If any of you know how to, wave a wand or take a magic pill to cure self-sabotage, hook a sister up, because I want in on that. But I don't know a way, so I only know the sustainable way, the uncomfortable way, the way we learn best, by trial and error, by doing the damn thing, okay? So I'm going to read you here. I've just come up with like 10 things that I see most frequently with the women that I work with. Side note here, if you're interested in working with me, I want you to head over to saushadavis.com and book a call with me, okay? I have a limited capacity for one-on-one, but I do have some group available and some upcoming retreats. So go over to saushadavis.com, book a clarity call with me, and let's just have a conversation, okay? Now, into the self-sabotage. The most common one I see, procrastination. Procrastination. We put things off until the very last possible minute, to where we just create anger and frustration and anxiety and stress and overwhelm in ourselves, to the point where we throw our hands up and say, I can't do this. We put things off, to the point where we're like, screw it, what's the point? That is probably the number one thing that I see, procrastination. The second thing I see is lack of self-control, lack of self-discipline. So this is where we're not committed to our goals. This is where we don't have that grit, that determination, where we say we're going to do something, but we have zero motivation or zero inner accountability. Okay. Number 3, expecting the worst to happen. This is where we let our monkey mind, that negative mindset, take control, right? Where if things are going really well, and this is something that I do, I'm like, oh, things have been really great. Oh shit, what's going to happen? All of my clients are going to up and leave, or my house is going to burn down, or my car is going to break down, or my husband's going to die, and everything's going to die, and and then next thing you know, I'm like, the whole world is coming to an end. I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny. But that's what a lot of us do. We all of a sudden go from like, things are really great, to, okay, things have been great for too long, something bad's going to happen. And then we put that in our brain that something bad is going to happen. Well, your thoughts become things, okay? So if you start expecting bad things to happen, well, you probably won't feel so great, and shitty things will probably happen. You'll probably all of a sudden have a flat tire, or spill coffee on yourself, or have somebody, unsubscribe, or get some hate mail, or who knows, somebody will come out of the woodworks and tell you how shitty of a person you are from something that you did like 15 years ago, okay? So try to focus on the positive. And I don't mean like toxic positivity, like everything's fine, which actually leads me into the next one, number 4. And this is that ignoring your problems as if they're just going to go away on their own. And so a lot of times this can also translate into toxic positivity, where people are like, it's okay, everything's fine, it's fine. I'm tired. I'll just be tired for like 18 years and it'll be fine. Or, oh, I just, I have all these bills, but it's fine. Everybody has bills, so it's okay. And you're ignoring the things that are happening in your life and not really spending any energy or attention there. And so what you resist will persist and will grow bigger. It's like the big elephant in the room. Like before you know it, everybody's like looking at the elephant, like, who is going to say something about this? Like, this elephant needs to leave the room. Okay. And so I find that ignoring your problems, a lot of times women do this with finances. Like that's probably the biggest thing, where they're like, well, I pay my bills each month, so that means I budget. Wrong. That's wrong. That, is a form of budgeting if you want to be technical about it. But it's not being intentional. It's not, a lot of times people will come to me and they'll say, I want financial freedom. I would say just because you pay your bills at the end of the month doesn't mean that you're achieving financial freedom. You're actually ignoring your problems and hoping that they'll go away just if you do a few things each month. And so this is where we bring energy and awareness into our intentions, into the things that we want to manifest, so that we can manifest them. You can't just sweep them under the rug and be like, poof, hope this really happens. I wish it were that easy. It's not. If you come here for easy stuff, you can just stop listening right now. Oh, shit. Okay, number 5, perfectionism. You know what's really funny with this one is when I talk to women on the phone, they're like, well, I can't do it perfect if I don't do this or if da-da-da-da-da. Yet I'm like, well, why did you come here? Well, I liked your realness and I liked that you weren't perfect about everything. And I'm like, okay, so it's okay for me not to be perfect, but you have to be perfect. That makes zero sense. So we place unrealistic expectations on ourselves and we think that things have to be perfect when in reality, nothing's perfect. Everything's perfectly imperfect, if you will. Like, how boring would it be if everything was constantly perfect? There would be zero contrast in life. And you guys know, if you've been listening to me for a while, if there's no contrast, then there's no desire, okay? Because the contrast curates the desire. The reason that there is contrast is so that you can have a desire, okay? So if everything was quote unquote perfect, you would live a desireless life. That doesn't sound like fun. There's beauty in the contrast, okay? And think if every single person looked the exact way, looked the exact same, talked the exact same, did the exact same things, everybody led this quote unquote perfect life, we'd be like in a fucking Sims game. Like, that's not fun. I want to live in real reality, not a virtual fake reality. And so going along with that, nature and humans and life is perfectly imperfect, and everything happens in a way to create contrast in our life to keep us desiring different things. It's part of human nature, okay? So let go of perfectionism. Nothing is perfect, or you can say everything is perfect, whatever. I don't really care. But if everybody looked and acted and if everything was the same, if we all had the same hopes and desires, we'd just be a bunch of sheep. Like, that would be terrible. That would be so boring. I can't imagine a life like that, you know? So the contrast is beautiful. And every time you experience contrast, you know, just know that it's giving birth to a new desire. And that there's no right time to start anything. There's no perfect time to do anything. You don't have to be perfect. Nobody really resonates with perfect. Like, I don't resonate with perfect. I mean, yeah, I like things that look like visually appealing, but I also like to know that people are humans, you know? Like, when you see like people in a magazine and you're like, oh, that's touched up. That's not real. You don't resonate with that, even though it's quote unquote perfect. That doesn't seem realistic. So don't hold yourself to unrealistic expectations because you're just setting yourself up for failure, okay? It's a self-sabotaging, self-fulfilling prophecy of, I'm never going to be good enough, okay? And so action kills perfectionism, and we'll come back to that here in a minute, which actually leads me to my next one, and that's comparison-itis. I just made that up. Actually, I think that somebody else probably made that up, but I'm going to use it. And so this is where, you know, you're always comparing yourself to the Joneses. The grass is always greener on the other side. And you're like, well, I'll never be good enough, or I'll never be smart enough, or I'll never be this, or I'll never be that, or somebody else is already doing it, so why can't I do it? But when you have an abundance mindset, you don't worry about what everybody else is doing because there's more than enough to go around, okay? So comparison-itis is a very lack mindset. It's a very low vibration mindset. It's full of doubt and depression and anxiety and fear, and I want you to let go of those things because everybody is on their path. Everybody needs to stay in their own lane. This is where I talk about like putting your blinders on because your life experience is different than the next person's life experience. And it's unfair to compare the two. Everybody has their own experiences, their own contrast, their own journey that they get to be on, that they're allowed to be on, okay? And you always hear this, like you would never want to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. You always would be like, okay, I want my problems back. Don't ever wish you were somebody else because a lot of times if you were in those shoes, you'd be like, man, this really sucks. I want my life back. Okay. So just stay in your own lane, focus on you. And I don't know if you can hear my husband's like redoing our windows and there's no quiet space. So again, which is really funny. We just talked about perfectionism. I'm not perfect, you days I'm sitting in a freaking recliner trying to hide from my husband who is redoing parts of our house. And it's just, I just said, done is better than perfect. I'm just going to hit record and we're just going to go for it, because I feel like this information is more valuable to you on the podcast than is in my brain. So I'm getting over myself, and I know it's not perfect, and I know I don't have, the number one podcast of all time, but I'm not worried about that, because the few thousand followers that I do have on this podcast, or, we have several thousand, believe it or not, we're dang near six figures on this podcast for downloads. And that's incredible. Thinking of when I started this podcast, I was like, oh, is anybody even going to listen to this? And now we have so many downloads. Hundreds of people are listening every day. It's just like the coolest thing, and so I always just keep that one person in mind. I'm like, yeah, someday I'll get to the masses when the time is right. But right now I'm just focusing on me and the people who resonate with me, right? So again, I'm not comparing myself to, Tony Robbins or any of these other top personal development people, right? We all are on our own path, and that's my life path. It's not up to me to compare myself, because that would just cause unnecessary lack of joy in my life. And I'm all about being happy. Okay. Next thing, shiny object syndrome. This I totally struggle with. Maybe you achievers and go-getters, enthusiasts can agree with this one too, where you're like doing one thing and then all of a sudden you see somebody else doing something. You're like, oh, but I want to do that. Oh, but I want to do that. Oh, but I want to do that. How about we do that? And you like jump ship, and you never really stick with one thing long enough for it to really like manifest into anything. So a lot of times we'll set goals, and then if it doesn't happen like immediately, we're like, oh, well, maybe I need to be over here and doing this thing. Oh, well, that didn't work. Okay, maybe I need to be over here and do this thing. The shiny object syndrome happens a lot for people who are into like dieting and exercise and things like that, where they'll like jump ship from program to program or diet to diet, personal development book to personal development book, or, those spiritual junkies where they're like, oh, well, I'm going to work on this, and then, oh, I'm going to work on this, and oh, I'm going to work on this, to the point where they're just like constantly consuming things, but they're not really doing anything, if that makes sense. And so how to cure shiny object syndrome: stick to something, grit, determination. That is like the hardest thing. It's like I do challenges for myself. I do monthly challenges, 90-day challenges, things like that, to prove that I can stick with things, because that is like the hardest thing for me. Like I'll wake up one day and be like, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to give up everything that I'm doing and I'm going to go do this thing. And I mean, it's fine. We need people like that in the world to, like spark adventure and try new things. But if you do it chronically, you just sit there spinning your wheels, and you're exhausted and you're fatigued, and you never really have anything to show for it, because you're constantly putting more time and energy into starting a new thing, that the thing that you already started never gets the opportunity to actually manifest into what it could have been. Okay. Imposter syndrome is the next one. And this is where we feel like, who am I? I'm not good enough. Somebody else is already doing it. This one is a big one that comes up in women, especially those who have like a deeper calling. Like they're like, oh, I want to start a business, or I want to share my message, or I want to start a community, or they want to do something out of the norm. They immediately shut themselves out saying, oh, I could never do that. Who am I? I'm just this, or I'm just that. And they like minimize themselves. They play small with themselves because they don't feel worthy. And so this is actually like a self-worth thing that comes up. And don't worry, again, like sometimes it's no fault of your own. Sometimes these things come up from past lives, or they're passed down from generations, generation to generation. And so it's up to you to stop the baton here. You don't have to pass that on to the next generation. You can prove to yourself that you can do things. But also on the other side of that, I find that nowadays there's a lot of entitled people out there where they're like, I read this book, so now I'm a business coach. I'm like, but have you ever built a business? Oh, shit. So there's two sides of that coin. So you always want to ask yourself, like, have I experienced this? Is this part of my personal path? Do I have personal knowledge in this area? Is this something that I feel like I could help give value to people with? Do I have knowledge and expertise in this area? And be really truthful with yourself. Like, do you find, and you don't have to be like 18 million steps ahead of somebody, just a leap or a jump ahead of people. Okay. And that's all you need to be. But I don't want you to also be one of those people who reads a book and is like, oh, I'm enlightened and I'm going to go teach all the things. Because it doesn't work like that either. Like, people can tell if you're full of shit, And I think especially these days, people can tell if you're full of shit. Like, I'll hear somebody say something and I'm like, okay, you're literally just reading that from a book. Is that even your words? You know what I mean? And so I think we can sometimes be fearful. That was me anyways. Like, I would read all of these things, and I've read hundreds of books. I've taken hundreds of courses, not hundreds of courses. That's an exaggeration. I have read hundreds of books though, but I've taken dozens of courses. I did go to college, university, however you want to say that. I studied this stuff for a very long time, and it took me damn near a decade to be like, okay, this is something that I feel like I can teach on. Because I just felt like I felt like I was such an imposter. Like, who am I? Like, people are going to think I'm so full of shit. They think I'm copying somebody. And it's really a practice, and there's no really way to overcome imposter syndrome until you just kind of like step into that. It's like it's like that toddler. The only way they're going to learn how to walk is if they get up and start trying, and they're going to fall down a lot, but they're going to learn a lot along the way. And the next thing you know they're going to be running and they're going to be unstoppable. And so that's what you have to treat imposter syndrome like you just have to jump 2 feet in, and every time you fall, get back up, keep going. Okay. Experience all the things, because that's going to make you even more of an expert. At least in my belief, in my opinion. It's great that you can have the book knowledge, but it's another level when you can experience and embody it, if that makes sense. And so I think this is where people sometimes feel that imposter syndrome, because they feel like, oh, well, I've experienced it, but I don't have the book knowledge. And honestly, me personally, I would rather work with somebody who has the experience, who's been there, done that, and worked their way through the other side, versus somebody who's just read a book and has a certification on a piece of paper, right? Because anybody can go get a certification, but you have to be at a certain place in your life to actually experience it. And so for me, and not everybody will resonate with this, some people really like to see that piece of paper. I've been asked several times, like, are you certified? Do you have this? And do you have that? I'm like, yes, I do. But I don't talk about it because I don't fucking care. Like, I do it because I love continuing education. But I don't do it for the fancy piece of paper. Like, I do it just so that I can keep learning, I think people come to me for my experience, not for my certifications and awards and college experience on the wall. Like, a lot of people can get those things and not have the experience, right? So imposter syndrome is very, very common. Next one, this is something that I also struggle with, and that's denying help. Feeling like you have to do everything yourself. It's like you're punishing yourself. It's okay for other people to ask for help, but I need to do this. And don't get me wrong, there are certain things that you have to figure out on your own. Like, nobody else can do that for you. Like, I can give you all these tools and resources and, sit here and talk until I'm blue in the face, but you're the only person that can actually do the things to stop your self-sabotage. That's all on you. You can ask for help. I can help you, but you have to be the one to do it. And so there are certain things that you have to work through, but you don't have to do everything yourself. You don't have to raise your kids yourself. You don't have to do your dishes by yourself. You don't have to build your business by yourself. Hell, you don't have to go for walks by yourself. You don't have to do anything by yourself. You can have a community. You can have support. You can outsource and delegate and do more things that bring you joy and more things that bring you together as like a family. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times we just expect our husbands or our spouses to do things, but we don't actually like say it to them. You know, it's like, I was just having a conversation with a client of mine the other day, and we were talking, and she said, oh yeah, I was telling my husband that it'd be really nice if somebody did this. And he was just like, yeah, it would. And then he walked away, and she's like, it would be nice if you did this. And so people can't read our minds. Okay. So like if I want my husband to take out the trash, I can't just go over to the trash can and be like, wow, this trash is really full, and expect him to pick up on those cues, right? Maybe they can. I mean, let's be honest. They probably know they need to take out the trash, but they can always misinterpret our communication if we are not direct. So this is where you need to ask for what you need. Ask for help. Don't deny the help. Don't feel like you have to do it all yourself. Don't feel like people can read your mind, because they can't. Okay. We can have all these like weird body language and, beat around the bush on things, but we get way more accomplished when we can be really direct. And so I find a lot of times we either, one, punish ourselves by saying, I have to do this myself, or two, we don't feel confident in asking for what we need. We feel like people will tell us no, or we're scared of rejection, or we're not sure how to effectively communicate that to others. So really sit with it. Like, how direct can you be in a polite manner? Like, hey, I really need help with XYZ. Okay. And stand up for what you need. Okay. Ask for what you need. The last thing I want to talk about today, and that is busying yourself to death. This is where we're like, I talk to a lot of people, they say, I don't have any time. I don't have any money. I don't have any energy. I'm like, okay, well, how many things are you saying yes to that you wish you could say no to? Oh, well, I took on this church thing, and I took on this PTA thing, and I took on this sport thing, and I took on this, and I took on this. And I mean, they all kind of make me happy, but I'm just exhausted. And I only said yes because so-and-so was doing it, and so-and-so. And you're not really saying yes because you want to say yes. You're saying yes because you think other people want you to say yes. And so we fill our calendars full of other people's stuff. And then we say, well, I don't have time for manifestation. I don't have time to take care of myself. I don't have time to run a business. I don't have time to spend with my family. I'm too busy. Well, I hate to say this to you, but you did it to yourself. You are the one that said yes. You're the one that wakes up every day and does the things on your list, on your calendar. You choose those things, whether you want to accept that or believe that or not. You are choosing what you do in a day. If you wanted to sit on your ass all day and take a personal health day, you could absolutely do that. But you would have to sit with the discomfort of saying no to everything else on your calendar. Okay. And so sometimes it's so easy to be that yes person because we want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be important. And we put our self-worth, we base our self-worth on how productive we can be. But I want to remind you that we are not robots. Okay. Your body was meant to rest. Sometimes you got to slow down to speed up. Sometimes you need to take, an 8-hour break at night, and it's called sleep. Sometimes you need to do things that fill your cup. And so I think it's interesting because there's a lot of us that get anxious with blank space on our calendar. And so it's so funny. I'll work with people and they'll say things like, oh, I want time freedom. I'm like, okay, great. Let's free up some of your time. And then as soon as we start to free up their time, they panic and they're like, there's 2 hours open on a Friday. I should be doing my to-do list. And I'm like, or do nothing because you said you wanted time freedom to free up your time to do things that bring you joy. So go do nothing or do something that brings you joy. Don't fill it with more shit to do because that is a self-sabotaging habit. So these are just the 10 that I see. So again, just to recap, procrastination and how we can overcome procrastination. I have this concept that I teach my clients about, and it's called the procrastination list. So what can you do first this week to create more energy and momentum to get other things done? So usually the thing that you're procrastinating the most is the thing that you need to do first. So reprioritize your list. Set deadlines, get accountability, okay? Number 2, lack of self-control, lack of self-discipline. Again, accountability is huge. Get crystal clear on what it is that you need to do and make it happen, okay? Get a planner, set timers in your phone, wake up early, stay up late, prove to yourself, challenge yourself that you can stick with something. Do a 7-day challenge. And then once you conquer that, do a 14-day challenge. Once you conquer that, do a 30-day challenge, do a 6-month challenge. And it can be something as easy as I'm going to do 10 push-ups every day this week. Challenge yourself to stick with something that you can actually win at, okay? And then use that energy and momentum to project you into other areas of your life too, okay? Number 3, expecting the worst to happen. Realize that your thoughts are just things. They're floating by, they're clouds in the sky. Think of, or a train, like a train just driving by and all the cars are just thoughts and there they go, one by one by one. They're just thoughts. Don't let them control you. Know that you can change your thoughts. One thing that helps me is if I have like severe anxiety, is I talk it through with somebody. So this is where like a support team comes in or a group, a coach, something like that. Somebody you can be like, well, I'm freaking out, man. And they're like, whoa, relax. Shifting your energy, going for a run, jumping jacks, anything, going outside, soaking up sun, meditation. Sometimes if you just write down your thoughts and, prove to yourself that like, okay, this is silly now that I'm writing this down. Another thing, if you write them down and burn them so that you're like, letting them go. Number 4, ignoring your problems like they will go away. They will not. Knowledge is power. Come up with a plan. Don't avoid the things. This is the number 1 thing that I want to talk about here is money. Okay. Create a budget, set intentions behind, where you want your money to go, come up with a plan. Okay. Plans are huge. And again, accountability is huge. Like say what it is that you're going to be doing because that's the uncomfortable part. A lot of times if we don't have, internal or external, accountability, or if we don't have that internal or external motivation, we won't do the thing. We'll just be like, I'm just going to ignore this because I didn't tell anybody. So why does it really matter? So accountability is huge with ignoring your problems and like bringing awareness to that thing. So if money is a problem for you, I encourage you to read as many money books as you possibly can. Knowledge is power when it comes to ignoring your problems. So the more you learn in this area, the more action you'll be able to take. Perfectionism, I think we really talked about that one a lot. Nothing in life is perfect. Let it go. Start messy. It will be okay. All right. It's the toddler thing. Get up. One step in front of the other, keep going. Comparison-itis is the next one. Put your blinders on, stay in your lane, stop worrying about what Susie Q is doing, okay? Focus on you. Number 7, shiny object syndrome. Challenge yourself to stick with something for a specific amount of time, okay, before you change to something else. And this is also where like accountability or a coach or somebody will come in and they'll say, hey, you need to do this thing for this amount of time. And then you can try something else. Okay. This is, this is easier said than done because especially like I'm an enthusiast. I'm a Enneagram 8. So a challenger, with a 7. So enthusiast. And so I'm always like, yes, I want to do the thing. But if you put more energy and attention, more rockets, more trains, more engines behind one idea, you'll gain more momentum there than if you like split all of your engines across multiple trains. Okay. So just think like if I focus on one thing, I can put more energy, more attention there, create more momentum, and that will project me into other areas of my life too. Okay. Next one, number 9. Or number 8, imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough. Okay. This is where, again, knowledge is power, experience is power. And just do the thing. Like you just have to take action. And every time you fall, think of it as failing forward and that you're just learning and you're going to get back up. So you fall down 8, get up 9, keep going. All right. Every time you fall down, what was the lesson? What did I learn? How can I get myself up and do things differently? Everybody fails, you guys. This is how we learn. This is like human species. This is how we learn. Okay. Number 9, denying help, feeling like you have to do it yourself. Stop that madness right now. You don't have to do it all yourself. You can ask for help. Okay. It is okay to ask for help. I promise. And then also people can't read your minds. So make sure that you ask for what you need. Okay. And last but not least is busying yourself to death. Leave blank space on your calendar to go for a walk, to let your mind wander, to be creative, to rest or to relax, to recover, to slow down, to speed up. You need these things in your life. You can't just go, 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 go. That's how people get burnt out. That's how people have like chronic stress, anxiety, all of these physical and emotional symptoms in their life, spiritual symptoms in their life, is because they're doing too much. Okay. Do less. It does not mean that you're any less worthy of a person. It just means you're spending more time and energy focusing on things that bring you joy. And what happens when we focus on joy? We fill our cup, which, guess what, guys, gives you more energy to keep going. Okay. So creating that blank space in your calendar, in your week, in your month, in your year actually gives you more energy to do the things that you love and that you want to say yes to. So start by saying no to a few things this week, okay? And then also start saying no to the things that you really don't want to do, okay? Speak your truth. You don't have to be all the things to everybody. That is unrealistic, okay? Because when you're being all the things to everybody else, you're not showing up for yourself and you're not showing up for your family or for those that you care most about, okay? So say yes to you more, so that you can continue to say yes to the things that bring you joy, like your family and whatever else is on your values list, okay? So how are you sabotaging your own success? Which one of these resonated with you the most? And what are you going to do to fix it? What are you going to do to challenge yourself? What are you going to do to heal this story so that you're not passing it on to the next generation, okay? And if you need help and you don't know where to start, I'm going to encourage you strongly to book a clarity call with me and let's have a conversation about it, okay? Whether it's one-on-one, whether it's group, whether it's a retreat, let's have a conversation and see how we can make a game plan so that you can really start manifesting your desires and really start living that life that you want to be living your best life, okay? So head on over, SaushaDavis.com, book your clarity call. And if you loved this episode, screenshot it, tag me on social media, Sausha.Davis or Manifesting with Sausha. Let me know what you loved most. And until next time, have a kick-ass day.